Hey guys, Christina here, and today I wanted to talk a bit about how we paid off a large amount of debt that we had, some kind of tips and tricks and things we did, and something that hopefully will inspire or maybe help you if you find yourself in the same situation. So I have a lot of notes here. I'm going to try and follow them, but I'll put a timestamp in the comment section down below if you want to jump straight to the tips. Otherwise, I just wanted to share a little bit of background. I'll link up above the videos if you want to watch kind of from the beginning. But kind of the gist of it was, my husband had finished school, we were married, we had one child, and he got his first real career type job, but we found ourselves with a lot of debt. And the debt was from two sources. One was my student loan, which was about $24,000. Now, very little of that had been used for school. A lot of it had been used for living expenses, medical expenses, and immigration fees. And then the other about 31-ish thousand was for a vehicle. So when we moved from BC to Alberta, to northern Alberta, we were living in a remote area. My husband had to have a vehicle. We didn't know anybody here. We had to get from where there was the nearest airport, 2.5 hour drive, and we had no vehicle. We had to get one. Anyways, it was kind of a kerfuffle. We were supposed to purchase a vehicle, ended up leasing one, because they said we could just switch it to buying later on because it was taking too long. Yeah, they didn't tell us the interest rate was going to be insane if we did that. So we ended up, when we were expecting actually our third child, we weren't going to have enough space for 3 car seats because our children are all very close in age, our first 3. And so we ended up, again, it's a long detailed story, but we ended up with trading in our Ford Escape that had been leased for a van, and getting stuck with over $30,000 in debt for this van that I don't really like. But that's beside the point. So I'm just gonna kind of go through. I've been delaying filming this video because I've been trying to figure out how to explain and to share. And I think the easiest way is just to go kind of category by category. We paid the debt off over about a 6-year period. During that time, we added 3 more children to our family, so we had 4. We did buy a house during this time. We had 2 vehicles by the end of it. And I also finished my degree, my bachelor's degree. So a lot happened over this time. And one of the reasons I kind of wanted to film this video in this series is to share that we're just normal people. You know, sometimes I see people have paid off $30,000 in a year, and it's how on earth did you do that? It took us 6 years to pay this off. That's what it did. So I'm gonna start. I've mentioned this before, and I kind of feel like you're gonna hear it a lot from me, but I often think of debt and money as a triangle, right? So you have one point that's your income, you have one point that's your expenses, and one point that's your priorities. And anytime you're trying to pay off debt, one or more of those, or all of them, have to kind of shift and change in order to make the situation work. So I'm gonna start with the income part first, because kind of the first thing that comes to mind when you have debt is, well, let's earn more money to pay it off. So these are things that our family actually did over this time to pay things off. So my husband had the opportunity at times to work extra shifts, like overtime, on-call, emergency, and so he took anything that he could get in order to get extra income for us to pay the debt down. He also was a facilitator for a certain parenting program, and so he was able to do that, as well as, I think it was an anger management group for men that he did for a while as well, and that brought in extra income for us. Now, I was home with my kids in the beginning, and so one summer, one of my husband's coworkers said, hey, I can't find anyone to watch my daughter for a week or 2, I don't remember. Does your wife want to do it? And so he talked to me, and I said, yeah, sure. And so I earned a little bit of extra money watching this child for a week or 2 in the summer, and that helped too. Part-time work. So I don't know why I'm going to share this story, but if you're going to get a part-time job, try and be strategic about it. So after the birth of our 3rd son, I think he was around 8 months, I wanted to help boost our income. And so I got a part-time job working at Toys R Us because they had the baby clothes, the diapers, all those things with an employee discount, and that adds up, right? Unfortunately, it didn't work out very well. I only stayed, I think, about 5 weeks. We only had one car, and with my husband's kind of schedule, it wasn't quite set, and the baby nursing, it was just not time for me to go to work. But part-time work, and try and be strategic about it if you can. Full-time work. So this is a very personal decision. For us, I did decide to go back to work full-time when my third son was just over a year old. Part of the decision was I had gone back and completed my bachelor's degree, but I needed to become a registered social worker in order to work in Alberta. And once you finish your degree, you have so many years to do that, or you have to go another route, which costs a lot more money and it's more confusing. So I needed to get 2,500 hours of work done before I could become a registered social worker. And it just kind of all worked. This was the time to do it. I found a full-time job. My mother-in-law actually came and watched our 3 kids at the time. It was mutually beneficial. We paid for, her airfare because she's from overseas, medical, expenses, everything. And then I gave her a portion of my paycheck, which she was able to take home and help her family out after. So it worked for both of us. And I worked for about 9 months, and then we found out we were expecting our 4th child. And I had planned to work through my pregnancy, but I got extremely sick. I got hyperemesis, and that didn't happen. But I was able to get, eventually, after modified work and everything, medical leave and then mat leave, which was amazing. In Canada, we have some great parental leave laws here. It's the only child I've ever received mat leave for, but I totally understand why some parents choose to go to work in between having children, because that is a huge financial benefit. So if full-time work works for you, works for you. I did go back later on after my 4th child was about 2, but only for about 3 months, and my childcare fell through, and social workers don't make much money. Let's just put it that way. I couldn't afford much childcare for 4 children. So didn't happen, but it ended up working out as I ended up homeschooling after that anyways. So full-time work, if it works for you, that's an option, second income, right? So other things we did. Okay, so recycling bottles. And I know this sounds crazy because it's 5 cents here, 5 cents there, but to this day, I still take a plastic bag out with me anytime we go out, like for a walk, and I'll pick up the random bottles that are left around and return them. My husband also noticed at one of his offices that it was always overflowing in their break room, their recycle bin or whatever. And so he asked if he could take care of it. And they said, yeah. And so we used to empty that, like, I think it was once a week, once every 2 weeks, and recycle and keep that money and put that money towards our debt. And it helped, everything helped. Anytime we had tax return, we were living up north for a few years, so we got northern allowance. Anything and everything we could throw at the debt, that's what we did. Another idea is, if you're in Canada, is there's a form, it's called T1213, and it's reduction at source. And what it means is basically, if you get a big tax return at the end of the year, basically the government is holding your money throughout the year that you've overpaid, and they're making interest on it, right? But if you do this reduction at source, they're calculating that you've overpaid taxes basically, and you get more of your take-home pay every month. Smaller tax return, more take-home pay every month that you can then earn interest on, or in our case, put towards the debt. So something to look into there. You can find it on Canada Revenue Agency's website. The details on how to fill that form out and like what applies. There's like, I think I wrote some down. Yeah, like charity, donations, child support, medical, RSP, that kind of thing. So that might work for you. Another thing I found over the years is interest rates. So we recently had some money, and you can hear my bread machine going behind here because of course I'm doing 2 things at once, right? We were getting about $2 interest on some money we had in our bank account, and I just like, there's got to be a better way. There just has to be. And so I was able to find another account, and now we're getting like $16 a month on it. Now, I don't know how much you would have in savings if you're trying to pay your debt off, but we always try to keep a little bit as an emergency fund, and you might as well make whatever you can off of that while you have it. Another thing we've done is I can't remember what it's called, like a food tester, where companies, they actually bring people in to try new products and give feedback on like the texture and the taste and how much they liked it, and you'd be paid for it. If you live in the Calgary area, you can shoot me a message and I will let you know which company I've done that with before. And it's, you can't take your children, that was the only negative, but remember making $100 once just going in 2 different times and trying this food, and it's just food, it's okay. doTERRA, I have earned a small income now and then off and on from doTERRA and through doTERRA. If you have questions, you can message me about that. Doing a paper route. So at one point, that time when my husband and I were both working full-time and my mother-in-law was in town, we wanted to make as much money as we could and get as much debt off our backs as we could, as quick as we could. So we picked up a newspaper route, and I laugh because it's kind of funny, because we would come home from work, we've still got 3 young kids at home, got to make dinner, and then get them in bed, and my mother-in-law would stay with them while my husband and I went out and did this paper route. And it was completely chaotic, and we didn't do it for too long, maybe a month or so, and we realized it just was too much. But we have since gone back, and my son and 2 of them right now are doing paper routes, and over the winter our family did it as a family project. So little things like that, like newspaper routes, it can add up over time, and it's once a week or twice a week or whatever. Credit card rewards. So you want to be careful with this. If you have credit card debt, this probably isn't the best option for you, but you want to make any credit cards you are using work for you. I had a cashback credit card, and I realized that I could really maximize what I was getting from this. And so now, and through our debt kind of paying back process, we put everything we possibly could through our credit card. We ran everything, utilities, everything through the credit card. Paid it off each month in full, but we earned cash back. And so that was a couple $100s every year that we were getting just for paying our regular bills. So you want to maximize something like that. Another one is like rewards. We use a credit card where we get free food from a local chain of stores, and it's a big chunk every month. It helps our food budget. So one of the last things is selling items. If you have anything extra around, we were starting out, so we had very few things, but every now and then we had something we could sell and put that money right towards the debt. And of course, you want to make sure that you are signed up for any social benefits that you're eligible for. We signed up for things like child tax benefit. Because my husband wasn't a citizen early, couple years we had kids, we had some kind of time without it, and then we were able to get it. And again, that increased our income, so we were able to pay back the debt. So then looking kind of at that second little point on the triangle, expenses. You want to try and reduce your expenses so you can put the difference towards the debt. So housing. So the advice I'd have for this is go smaller than you think you need. We lived in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom until we had 2 children. And then we lived in a 3-bedroom, 1.5-bath until we had 3 children there. And then we purchased our home, which was a 3-bed, 1.5-bath, and we added another bathroom. And now we're in a family of 7, about 1,500 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath. And it is quite a lot of space. So often you don't need as much space as you think you do. And when you typically rent or buy something smaller, you're gonna save on your housing costs. You wanna make sure that you stay in your budget. One place we lived was not the nicest, but it was in our budget, and it was temporary, and it helped us pay our debt off, and so it worked. You also want to compare rent versus mortgage. Is it worth renting? Is it worth buying? And maybe even looking at communities a little further out. Is your transportation costs worth saving on the housing costs? Some things to think about and compare. Utilities. So you want to shop around. That's the biggest thing. You want to talk, when you do decide on a utility company and your utilities, you want to keep checking in with them. A lot of companies have discounts or promos going, or they have a loyalty department. I know for our phone and internet, I call about every 6 months because most promos are about 6 months, and I call and see what I can do to reduce the cost at that time. I'll give you an example of this. So just this past month, we have very, very basic low internet because it's all available in the area we live in. It's very, very slow. But the cost for it is actually $65 a month, which kind of blows my mind that that's expensive. And we're currently paying around $45 through some promos and some bundling options. And this thing popped up saying that if I signed a 2-year agreement, that I would get the internet for $25 a month. And I was like, oh. So I called and talked to them and asked a lot of questions. You know, what happens in this scenario? What happens in that scenario? What does that mean? And one of the things was it was meant for new customers. But they said to me, because if you're not on a contract right now, if you're willing to make the commitment to a contract, we'll consider you to be a new customer. And one of the most important things I tell you is once you get your information, hang up. Because we hung up the phone, my husband and I talked it over, we went through the numbers, made a decision, and then called back, knowing we'd made the best decision, and we went ahead and did this. And so our internet is going to be around $25 a month now. It may go up a little bit, but it's always going to be $40 less than the typical price, which is more than what we had been paying before. Now, we actually have the option through our funding reimbursement for our children's education to use part of their money that they are available to them towards 50% of our internet costs each month. So for us, we're looking at internet costs of $12.50 a month. I mean, that's unheard of, right? But it's possible, it happens. So always talk to the utility companies, look at what they're offering, look at what the competitor's offering, and get the lowest price you can to free up that money to pay off debt. Now, you also want to, of course, reduce your usage. That's kind of a given. When we lived up north, water was very expensive. And so even though the house that we lived in had a dishwasher, we never used it. And in fact, when we did our checkout, when we moved away 2 years later, our landlord opened the dishwasher and the manual was still sitting in there because we had never used it. For a family of 3, 4-ish, you know, it just wasn't worth it. We could wash dishes using less water, and so we did that. Other things we've done in the past, which may sound crazy, but you can actually add like a sealed water bottle and the plastic ones in the tank of the toilet, and it kind of creates a low flow toilet situation. You use less water every flush. We've taken light bulbs out. We've used rain barrels, turned our heat down, worn, just more layers. I've also made, I forget what it's called, like a draft stopper. It's like fabric that's like rolled, and I stuffed it with plastic bags that I had because that's what I had on hand, to put at the bottom of the door to keep the cold air out. There's just like so many things you can do to reduce your usage. And even if you're saving 5 cents a day, it's gonna add up, and that's 5 more cents you can put towards your debt. We did some crazy things then. We still do some of them. Weatherproofing is another one I have here. And then also get details on how your utilities charge for payments. After a couple of years, I discovered that our car and home insurance, if we paid it once a year, it was actually 4% less than paying it twice a year or breaking it up to monthly payments. And so we started doing that as paying once a year, and then through that year that we paid for, we would save every month, so we'd have the next year to pay for it, and it saved us 4% on our utilities, right? Or sorry, our insurance right off the bat. So always kind of look for those. Ask, do you have a discount if we pay up front? Do you have a discount if we pay cash? Figure out what you can do. So then the next one, transportation. This is kind of a straightforward one too. You always want to find deals on the vehicles you're purchasing. We will never buy a new vehicle again. That was just such a fiasco, and it's not worth the money. When we did end up buying a second vehicle, my husband found one. It was a small vehicle because he did a lot of driving for work, and I think he paid $1,000 for it, and it lasted for years. And then he actually ended up selling it when we had our 5th child, because he was home for about 4 months on parental leave, and we went back to being a 1-car family, and he actually sold it because it was needing a lot of work. And for that time, we were a one-car family. You also want to keep the maintenance up on it, which seems counterproductive maybe when you're trying to pay off debt. But a car that is maintained is going to work better than one that suddenly has like a major catastrophe and just falls apart, right? One of the things I always did when I went out was I would plan my route to make sure I was hitting everywhere I needed to hit and find out which route was going to take the least amount of gas and just go out once. And other times, stay home. Because if you stay home, you're not using fuel, right? You know, sometimes you can find there's reduced bus passes and stuff. I know Calgary has like their fare entry program, which includes subsidized bus passes. So there are options for public transportation as well. And again, weighing those options of public transportation versus owning a vehicle and what's gonna work best for you and save you the most money, right? Okay, food. Food is a big one, and I'm planning to do a video later on to go into a lot more detail about the food. So this is just some kind of general tips or things that we did. So I learned how the grocery stores worked. I learned what a loss leader was. I learned how to go through flyers and know what a true sale was. I kept a log of sale prices, so I would know what a true sale price was. That's really important. Meal planning, big one for saving. Rebate programs and apps, again, can save you tons. Coupons, and no, coupons are not just for junk food. There are coupons for fresh produce, for meat products, and you can also use them for household products, which then frees up more money for the grocery side of it. And again, I'll share more details about this in a future video. Community kitchens, things like the Good Food Box, which is like a group buying program, co-ops, canning your own food, growing your own food. We've had times where we've had big gardens. We've had times where we've had square foot gardens. Currently, we have a couple little planters out here as we're working on building some gardens. So always growing something is gonna help, right? It's gonna free up some of that money. Stocking up when things are on sale. I've talked about like the tuna before. If you haven't heard, go back and watch my other video. But stocking up when things are cheap and things that are shelf stable will save you money in the long run. Oh, using food allowance. I have a note here. So the first couple years my husband worked, like in his career, he would be sent to the big city. We'd go to like Edmonton or Grand Prairie, and he would have to attend trainings for a couple days or a week. And they would put him up in a hotel that had a little kitchenette, and he would get a food allowance every day. And because we only had 1 or 2 children at the time, we would go along with my husband, and we would eat breakfast at the hotel, like we would cook something or eat cereal or something, really simple lunch, and then we would use his food allowance to buy dinner. And so essentially it didn't cost us anything out of pocket. So if you have any job or work that kind of maybe has that perk at that time, make sure you make use of it. Free events, oh boy. Community, church, neighborhood, there's always free events going on. Open houses, I shared recently that like the new developments, they often have those, what they call food trucks, and you can get a meal or something for completely free just for stopping in. Right now July is Stampede time in Calgary, and so there are pancake breakfasts galore. There is, for breakfast, there's lunches, there's dinners. You can get a ton of free meals. So make use of all those free meals, but make sure, because this is the key, right, that what you save, you then put towards your debt. Making things from scratch, you know, things like granola bars or bread. Like my bread machine that's behind me right now, or over there, that's going off. Preparing meals for when out. This is a big one when you have kids. I like to make things like pizza buns, and I would just stuff them in the freezer and we could grab them when we need to go. Really simple food that prevents you from eating out while you're out. Learning your favorite meals. We rarely ate out while we were paying off our debt, rarely. So we learned to make a lot of the foods that we liked at home, and I think we kind of make them better sometimes. So we still were able to enjoy without spending that money. Get creative is another one. So you can go, libraries have cookbooks, Pinterest. I mean, it's just, you can access so many. Get creative, learn new recipes, see how far you can stretch the food that you have. And we did that many, many a times. All right, clothing. So the first thing with clothing I'd say is look for, if you have Free Cycle, I know it's not as big as it used to be, but we used to get a lot of clothes from Free Cycle. In fact, one time I was on the Edmonton Free Cycle group, even though I didn't live there, but because we were going back and forth, my husband's work, I used to follow it. And someone was offering maternity clothes in my size, and I desperately needed maternity clothes with my second child. And so I actually sent them a message and said, hey, if I send you the money to ship these clothes to me, will you ship them to me? And they said yes. And so I wrote an old-fashioned check, there's no e-transfer then, and mailed it to them. And when they got the check, they packed up the box and sent it to me. And it was a huge box of clothes that I wore for a very long time. And I actually, I have a Valentine's wreath that I made from when the pants like wore out. I cut the fabric up. I'll see if I can insert a picture if I can find one. And I made a Valentine's wreath, which I still have to this day. And those clothes, I think I paid $15 for the shipping, and they were like 150, 200 more worth of maternity clothes. So if you have a Free Cycle, follow that. Secondhand stores, especially when they have sales. We had a church near us that once or twice a year they would do like fill a garbage bag for $5. And so I would go and get clothes for me and my husband and the kids, and I think I was probably pregnant at that time. I was always pregnant. So lots of baby clothes, like so cheap. Hand-me-downs, you know, anytime anyone is giving anything away, we always say sure, and we would take it and we'd pass on what we didn't need and keep what we did need. A lot of my children's clothes during this time and my own were hand-me-downs as well. Upcycle and repurposing. I remember having a shirt and I really needed a maternity shirt, and so I like sewed and altered it. Again, I'll see if I can find pictures, and made it work for me. I had a skirt that didn't fit me anymore and I repurposed it into a dress for my daughter. Just reusing anything that you can find. That kind of repurposing, recycling, using till it's really truly gone. We did that a lot. Having less clothes. Don't need a lot of clothes, right? It's kind of straightforward. Our family also tends to do what we call inside clothes and going out clothes. Maybe if you've seen some of my day in life, you'll see I'm typically wearing a lot of the same clothes, and they have stains on them. That's okay, because from cooking, from cleaning, they get dirty. And then we keep our outside clothes for when we go out of the house, and that way it keeps them nice and they last longer. And we found, especially with the kids, that's been really helpful to make clothes last longer and not have to buy as many. I also created a clothing inventory to make sure that we had the things we needed for our children as they were growing up. And then we also, so that we didn't have too much at the same time, and I didn't overbuy or overspend. And then also buying the end of the season. I remember I got my daughter's winter jacket for like $5. This like, I don't know, $60, $70, $80 jacket for $5 because they were clearing it out. And I tend to do that, snow boots, jackets, all that stuff. If I can't find it at secondhand stores, which I look year round for them, I check the online and the store year end of season sales. And I found some great things and kept our children in the clothing they needed while keeping that cost down and checking out the extra towards debt. So, entertainment. This is a tough one because when you're paying your debt off, you need to live, you need to do something, right? You can't just sit at home every single day for 6 years. So the library, that's the biggest source of entertainment often for us. We would get books and magazines, but also movies and TV shows, and we would watch those. Free events nearby and promotions. We took part in, what was it called? Canada 150, and they gave out free national parks and history passes. And so we were able to go and visit history sites and go to the park without having to pay the entrance fees. Also things like we've been to medieval fairs, we've been to like neighborhood community get-together kind of things. There's always free events going on. If you look, you can find some. You can also create your own get-togethers. That's always fun too. Finding sales using Groupon. Our family recently went on a vacation, and Groupon, we looked at some of the things we wanted to do and looked them up on Groupon first, and actually found one that saved us quite a bit of money. But anytime we felt like it had been a while, we wanted to go out and do something, we'd look on Groupon. Entertainment books, sometimes people give those coupons away, things like that, to try and still have fun but at a low cost and within a budget. Sometimes getting creative, and I have a note here. A couple years ago, more than a couple years ago, I would say 5 years ago or so, six years ago, I actually joined a flash mob because I actually like to dance a lot. And they were doing an event at the Calgary Stampede, and I got 2 tickets for my husband and I to go in and be part of this flash mob. And it's the only time we've ever been to the Stampede, and it was great. It was a ton of fun and just great memories, and it was completely free for us to go in. So get creative and look around and find a flash mob. Randomness. Oh, one other thing is I love chocolate. And so I would buy M&Ms throughout the year, and they used to have a promotion where you got certain number of like the bag tops, and you would mail them in, and you got 2 free movie passes. And so I did that one year, and so at the end of the year, we were able to go to the movies, 2 of us, which was fun. You want to look for combining deals as well. One year we bought, I think it's called the Alberta History Pass, and it's like a whole bunch of historical sites and museums in Alberta, but you can buy 1 pass, which is 1 entrance fee. It's good for a whole year. They had a family one, so much cheaper than even going to like 2 of them, maybe even 1 location. And we kind of bundled it, and it gave us a lot of things we could do throughout the year that way. You know, buying things that can last for the whole year is kind of, can save a lot of money too. One year, our entire family, for Christmas, we got ice skates, because that's something that, you know, they have outdoor rinks here in the mountains. We can go skating, and that's something that we could pay for once and do a number of times. Things like camping, investing in camping gear, or we've done memberships before to like the zoo or the science center and bought them when they're on sale, and that provides a year of activities, so we're still getting out and feeling like we were doing something, even if we didn't have a lot of money to spend on it. Free TV and movies, there's so many sites. I know a lot of people have, what's it called, Netflix. We don't have Netflix, we don't have any subscription TV, anything. CTV, slice.ca, hgtv.ca, you can watch episodes on there online, and between that and the library, that works for us. Parks and museums, a number of them are free or by donation. We've been to some great ones. I've filmed a few of them if you want to go back and check those ones we've been to. But there's always ones. There's a local museum that one night of the month, it's completely free to go in, and you just gotta find things to do that are gonna keep you motivated to keep paying your debt off and not spending the money, because it can be hard if you're staying home all the time. Then the last note I have here is just to ask for discounts. Do you have a sibling discount? Do you have a family discount? Do you have a volunteer that, you know, you need something volunteered, you can switch back and forth? And I'll share more about that when I talk about kids' activities, because we just had an experience. I always ask for these discounts when I'm signing my kids up, but we just had an experience where we ended up paying for only 2 of our 4 children to do an activity, and it allowed us to do it. It then fell within our budget. So always ask those questions. Stuff. Oh boy. So when we were expecting our second child, we needed a car seat and we needed a place for this baby to sleep, because our other child was 17 months when our second one was born, and he was still in the crib that we had. And we were in a very small house, like I said, 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom. There was no space for even like a regular playpen. So I found a mini playpen, and then my next challenge was to find it for an affordable way for us, because we were paying this debt off. And so I actually went into a local dollar store, which is not a dollar store. They sold baby products, and I went to the owner and I said, "Are you able to get these?" And he looked them up and he said, "Yeah." And I said, you know, this is the price I've researched. This is the best I can get it for. Can you beat that price? And he told me if I paid up front and I bought the 2 items that he would give me an extra discount. And I knew that that was gonna be the cheapest I could find anywhere. And so that's what I did. So you just gotta look for discounts. You gotta ask, you gotta talk, right? Upcycling, again, that maternity wreath. Maternity pants I turned into a Valentine's Day wreath because I wanted a wreath for my door. That took care of that kind of stuff, right? Upcycling, repairing, fixing again, free cycle, whatever you can. Another one is cloth diapers. We cloth diapered for 10 years, primarily cloth diapered. We did use some disposables, and I'll put the link up top again if you want to see my experience with that and kind of what we learned from it. Mama cloth, reusable menstrual cups. There's all kinds of things you can do, and there's more options now than when we were paying this debt off. And enter contests. This sounds really funny, but we used to enter contests, and sometimes we would win things. We won a barbecue, which actually we still have. Gosh, how many years is it? 9 years later, we still have this barbecue that we won for free because we wanted a barbecue. But my brother-in-law, he recently won a boat. Like, if there's a contest, why not enter it? And that way you can get the stuff that you need without paying a lot of money, and you can put that money towards debt. Medical, oy. So I'm planning to do another video, again, specifically on some medical things, because I've had medical expenses both in the US and in Canada, and I have found ways to mitigate the costs and to save a lot of money. So I'm gonna share more details about that. But in general, go generic, try and stay healthy, look for programs. We have like the Alberta Child Medical Card or Health Card here. Programs that can help supplement some of that cost. Drug companies will cover it, which I'll talk about more in the other video, and programs. Yeah, I'll share more about that. And then finally, that third piece of the triangle, the priorities. This is a hard one, because if you want to get out of debt, your priorities are probably going to have to shift, and sometimes that sucks. And that's the reality. You have to be realistic. You have to sacrifice. You know, I talked about we just went on a vacation, but prior to that, it had been 7 years since we've been anywhere for more than like a night or two. We just didn't do vacations. We didn't do expensive things. We didn't go out and eat. We didn't, sometimes friends would go out for dinner and be like, oh, we can't. We've had to limit the number of birthday parties our children can go to, because we only have so much we can spend on birthday gifts. And with 5 kids, they get a lot of invitations. You just kind of have to reduce the extra stuff and extras, and that's a very personal thing. We just lived a very, very simple life while we were trying to pay off this debt, and put more priority on like paying off the debt than kind of new or fancy stuff. So once we got out of like consumer debt, it was amazing. It's so heavy when it's over you, and if you're in the midst of that right now, I totally feel for you, because it is so hard to have that kind of like looming over you, and the pressure and the concern that it can cause. I'll never go back into consumer debt, knock on wood, hopefully. Planning not to, because it is such a challenge. So hopefully this has given you some ideas, maybe something to kind of try or think of. I'd love to hear if you've paid off debt, what else you did to pay off your debt in the comment section down below. Let me know. I have some more financial videos coming out. As I mentioned, I'm going to do the medical one, as well as like kids activities and the grocery. I'm also planning to do one on homeschooling and how to save while homeschooling. So let me know kind of what your questions are if you have them, and hopefully I'll try and answer them either in the comment section or in future videos as well, or if there's something you're curious about, or how we specifically paid it off. One other thing I want to mention before I forget is if you have a student loan or something like that, make sure you find out about payment deferrals. I was able to sign up for where like the interest was deferred, and so for 6 months any payments I made went right to the principal, and that makes a big difference when you have a big amount of debt. So check into that as well, and any programs, anything you're eligible for, especially to reduce the interest, because that's going to help you get ahead and get that debt paid off. Hopefully this has been helpful. Hopefully I haven't forgotten too much. If you have any questions, leave them down below, and I hope this finds you having a great day. Take care.